Yo yo yo, mystical reviewer here. Ask and I will review. Yes, hi. I heard that you take show requests. I was wondering if you would be interested in reviewing the show. Well, I don't have my computer in front of me, but I don't recall there being a cartoon called The Show. Correct me if I'm wrong? No, I mean the show. The one that's a part of everyone's childhood. Oh, well, to be honest, looking back at most of the shows I watched as a kid, most of them aren't all that good anymore, in my view. What? Are you telling me that the show with the yellow legend isn't that good? Yellow legend? Wait, are you talking about Spongebob Squarepants? No, duh. You can't tell me that SpongeBob wasn't a part of your childhood. SpongeBob wasn't a part of my childhood. Yes, you heard it here. SpongeBob wasn't a show that I grew up with. Considering how popular of a show it is, and considering I'm a reviewer, you probably would have never guessed it. But it's true. I mean, it's funny because everyone I know in high school still talks about this show, even though they've moved past most cartoons. The only other ones I've ever heard being talked about are Family Guy, Steven Universe, regular shows, South Park, and the Boondocks. And one can certainly come to the conclusion that SpongeBob is the least adult-oriented out of any of those. It's also the most talked about of any show I've ever encountered. So that leaves one more question. Why didn't I grow up with it? Well, for the record, I'm not going to fully answer that because that would get too much into my personal life. But I will say this much. It had nothing to do with anything in the actual show itself. I guess in some ways me not watching it when I was young helps me because I don't have that much of a bias towards it. So something that everyone knows about SpongeBob is that it's one of the longest running animated shows with new episodes. That's actually a criteria for my reviews. They have to be a show that's still airing. But anyways, the fact that the show's aired for so long in many ways is making it a lot harder for many people to review. So what personally I'm going to do is split the show up into 3 parts. Seasons 1 through 4, 5 through 8, and seasons 9 through 10. So let's see if any of the parts will make you adore the yellow sponge, or if you'll grow an eternal hatred for sponges. Spongebob Squarepants! Spongebob Squarepants! Honestly, the writing is the main reason I had to split this up into 3 parts. I mean, something like the voice acting or animation is pretty consistent, but writing has drastically changed on the show. It started off as simple stories with a heavy seasoning of kids' comedy, and transitioned into a somewhat more sadistic show actually. A lot of the fans of the show despise what the show became between seasons 4, although personally I think it's more season 5 was the transition, all the way to season 9. These seasons, like I said before, certainly had a more sadistic side to them. Now, although unlike somebody like the mysterious Mr. Autist,
did I tell you how much I despise these writers' guts?
Oh well.
I am this close to snapping right now. This f***ing close! You guys already know that I absolutely hate these writers. I despise their guts. Want them blacklisted.
I would never complain enough to make a video where I showed off a writer's Twitter feed to even more autistic fanboys. I can understand criticism for some critics like Pie Guy Rules, who do make a fairly compelling argument about issues within the show. The third stretch never really get talks about, which surprises me considering like how big of a fan base there is. Usually there's only 2 sides to the coin in most people's view. Seasons 1 through 3 and then onwards. And that's really all I'm going to say about writing. Everyone at this point knows the story. Spongebob Squarepants! Spongebob Squarepants! In the older seasons, there was not really any character that anyone disliked. SpongeBob was a quirky and perhaps mildly dumb character who many people loved. Patrick was the main comedic relief, always giving his one-liner jokes that would throw kids into a coma worth of laughter. Squidward was the prickly character who could edge on being a killjoy. Mr. Krabs was a sly dog competitor. In later seasons, all the characters except Squidward, perhaps, underwent drastic changes. SpongeBob became clueless, Patrick became a spoiled brat, and Mr. Krabs practically became married to money. Although I didn't gravitate childhood connections to the show, again, I don't think the changes made to the characters were a good idea. Seasons 9 and 10 try to use both aspects, it seems. I wouldn't quite say that the characters are exactly like their old selves, but there certainly is a breath of the older seasons in them. The voice acting is good, no real surprise as everyone seems to agree on that.
Spongebob Squarepants! Spongebob Squarepants!
The first season of SpongeBob is actually the only one that's hand-drawn. The later seasons are done digitally. The art starts off at a mediocre state, with a bit of a chop in the FPS to become very smoothly and fluidly animated by seasons 9 and 10. I think the art is very creative and conveys the tone of the show perfectly. The FPS is probably the best of any Nick show I've seen, which isn't saying much in the sense that all their other programming is brand new, and brand new shows never have smooth animation. However, I will say that, considering the show has run for so long, the FPS has become quite nice. The only criticism I can really give to the art is for that all the money in later seasons that's given to the animation, it seems like they were cherry picking money in the writing department.
SpongeBob SquarePants! SpongeBob SquarePants!
Although I find seasons 1 through 4, as well as seasons 9 and 10 a little good, I'm not gonna lie and say that I love this show, and would go out of my way to watch it. Besides it not being terrifically exciting, it's just really a show aimed at younger kids, and there's nothing wrong with that. And what's more is that most of the people who don't watch a kid's show as well as a kid don't really find it entertaining. Even I've gotten past the point where most shows I've grown up with don't entertain me, and honestly I'm fine with that. So for seasons 1 through 4, I'd give the show a 6 out of 10, seasons 5 through 8 a 4 out of 10, and seasons 9 and 10 a 5 out of 10. I know not a lot of people will probably agree with me again, but I personally think the show never stood out, and its basic aspects to why it was so popular being a creative concept, not creative writing. But that's all I have to say. Mystic out.